All right. We made it. Okay. Let's see here. We are officially live. We are live. Hey guys. Yeah, I tried to go live and I put my thumbnail and then it just wouldn't upload and then I had to redo it. So, hopefully all the tech is good now. I'm just going to hang out, give it a few minutes, maybe like 4 or 5 minutes. But we are live. And this is going to be fun. I said it was going to be a wild card. So I'm excited to share what we're going to talk about. Welcome, welcome. Nice to see everybody. Well, I can't see anybody, but I can feel your presence. Nice to be with y'all this Friday early evening as we roll into the weekend. So just going to hang out while some people join. Welcome, welcome. Friday, February 20th at 4 p.m. Central. Hi, guys. Welcome. This is going to be fun. I'm excited to have like an optimistic, fun, unifying conversation about men and women. So we'll see how far I get in this live. But I'm excited to talk about my topic. I'm going to hold on to it here for a few more minutes while we gather some folks to join. But hello to those of you that are here. Let me know in the chat where you're tuning in from. It's always fun for me to know where everybody's tuning in from. And then we're going to get started. Yeah, I'm going to give it like maybe 2 or so more minutes. Just have my tea here. I'm going to talk about some fun masculine and feminine themes today. I know I usually put my thumbnail on the thing, but YouTube was just being weird. It wouldn't let me go live. So I did it without it. So I'll put it in there after. Okay. Some likes here. Hello, hello. TGIF. Okay. I'm not gonna hold it anymore. I'm gonna say what we're gonna talk about, which is gonna be really fun. I want to talk about the different themes that I got to experience when I watched A Few Good Men. So I got to watch A Few Good Men, the film from the 90s with Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson, Kevin Bacon, Demi Moore. And I would regard this film as quite a masculine film. And I watched it yesterday and I had so much fun watching it. I cannot believe I haven't seen it. I know it's a really famous, very important movie. It has that famous line in it, you can't handle the truth. That famous line, which is awesome. And just the whole film. So I'm going to give it like 1 or 2 more minutes for people to join. And then I want to talk about the differences between masculine and feminine themes in film and get into a couple of other different topics. And I just think it'll be a fun conversation. They don't make films like that anymore. It was such an amazing film. And I'm reflecting over what I learned from it. And I don't know if anyone has seen it. I mean, a lot of people have seen it. It's a very famous film, but if you haven't seen it, I'm gonna share the plot a little bit, and then we're gonna get straight into the themes and what I learned, and then I have something to read here that I think is relevant. So it's gonna be a nice discussion on masculine, feminine themes. Sit back, grab your beverage, hang out. If you're wearing headphones, do whatever you do around the house. Like ease your way into the weekend. Okay. Who do we have here? Where are you guys joining from? Let me know in the chat so I can feel y'all here. And then I'm going to dive right in. All right. Okay. And also just let me know if you can't hear me. I know last time I had some tech issues, but I think this time is good. Hopefully my mic is good. Everyone can hear me. I think it's pretty good. I'll turn up the mic just a little bit if I need to. Okay. Cool. Okay, so let's dive into it. A Few Good Men. Rob Reiner film. My nearby neighborhood movie theater loves to just, it's like this indie movie theater from the 70s. This theater just loves to play whatever they want to play, which is so fun. And they love to play things on 35 millimeters. So the original way it was intended to be watched. And it's just so awesome watching movies on 35 millimeter. It's just so raw and real. And so this film, I'd say, really just incorporates all of the masculine themes, the things that are really important, like honor, loyalty, justice, um, code of honor. And I think what was fascinating too, and then thinking about like moral clarity. What is moral clarity? How can you determine what's the right or the wrong thing to do? And I think that's definitely one of the one of the ways that we lean on men, one of the ways that we lean on the masculine is to help us determine what is moral clarity. Um, One of my reels got a lot of attention when I was from my episode about evolutionary psychology and specifically the instincts of girls versus men. And I had talked about a study that was done that showcased that while men feel pleasure when bad people are punished, women feel empathy when bad people are punished. Men feel empathy when good people are punished, but women feel empathy when both good and bad people are punished. So I think that's just because our drives are so distinct, right? A man's ultimate drive is to, secure the perimeter and protect and keep the enemy away, conquer the enemy. Whereas a woman's drive is to keep an infant alive, and keep her children alive, keep herself alive, and all of that. So I think it's evolutionarily beneficial for a woman to be empathetic towards misbehaving children, right? But it's not evolutionarily effective to be empathetic towards like enemies, right? The other tribe. So that makes a lot of sense. And because of that, typically we look to men to be the moral clarity, the moral, like, this is right, this is wrong. And so I thought that this movie was so fascinating because if y'all don't know, I'm sure most of y'all have seen it, but basically it's the story of what happened, a court case, a trial that went on specifically within the military, in that two Marines, one like that was a little again, okay, and you guys don't mind me here because I'm not an expert in military terminology. So please, if y'all are former military or current military, I'm gonna mess up the names and the labels and the hierarchies. Please do not hold that against me. I am not an expert in military terminology. So basically this one Marine and then someone that he was, higher ranking, they both went into the room of one of their fellow Marines in their corps, in their unit, and, put a rag in his mouth, tied him up, and they basically were, hey, Anya, checking in, working right now, watching the video later. Thank you for the great wisdom as usual. Awesome. So basically, thank you. Appreciate you, Josh. So anyway, they basically kind of like kidnapped their fellow Marine, and they hurt him and tied him up and tied his mouth and tied his legs. But then what ended up happening was he died like an hour or two later. He ended up dying. And the big question is, like, did they try to kill him? Was this an accident gone wrong? Why did they do this to him? what is this? And I come to learn that this is what is called a code red. And it's this kind of unspoken, part of being a Marine. And that if someone is, weaker, if someone is not keeping up, or if someone is just, like needs to be put in their place, a higher ranking officer will order a code red. And it's mostly supposed to be about hazing. It's not about killing anyone. It's about hazing. And so I think obviously what ends up happening is this man dies, and the officers at the top try to cover it up. They try to cover it up. And what ends up happening is the two Marines that did the doing, they did the deed, they were then being charged with murder, manslaughter. And we get to experience Washington, D.C., which is, I guess, called like where the naval officers work from. It's a little bit more of the administrative center of the military, where I guess it's called the JAG. Anyway, sorry about the military terms. But anyway, Tom Cruise's character, he's this fresh lawyer, 9 months out of law school, in the military, maybe following in his father's footsteps. Maybe there's some like father wound, and that his father, like he needed that validation from his father, but he never really got the approval from his father. His father had died. All those themes, those masculine themes, right? It's like the honor, the loyalty, the code, the father validation, all that stuff. So anyway, he basically gets assigned to be the lawyer on this case and to figure out what the heck happened here. And we become very clear that the colonel who actually ordered this code red is not a very great man, but it's not so black and white, right? Because he actually thinks he did the right thing, but obviously covering it up and then, trying to cover it up. So, and then two people below you that you ordered to do the deed going to jail, like that's not very good. And so, and then there's just this whole part of this film is like these men that are just trying to cover this up. The Kevin Bacon's character is also trying to cover this up. Like the prosecutor is trying to cover up the deeds of this man and who ordered the code red. And what's really fascinating to me is like we see the masculine and feminine dynamic like instantly. That's one thing I love about this film that I just think is so beautiful. And we never talk about how the masculine actually sees the relationship between men and women. There's this narrative that like men have historically pushed women down and treated them as less than and not important. And maybe that's been true in some cases, but in this specific film, Demi Moore's character, who basically is the support role for Tom Cruise's character, she is the kind of like the inspiration to him to step into that moral clarity, to say, okay, I'm not just going to do the easy thing and go along to get along. I'm actually going to do the right thing. And so what ends up happening is he steps into this like moral clarity and he becomes the hero, right? If you will. And actually what's really interesting is I just having fun with all these themes. I got this book sent to me actually by a client who I've been working with over the last year. And he had been cleaning out his like family attic, and you can smell it. This book is like maybe from like 1960 something. It's just one of these old books. And I just want to read the beginning, and it talks about the women of the Bible, which I'm fascinated obviously by women's roles and men's roles and how we work together. And this is very important because what I want to say is that what I experienced from a few good men is the experience of what teamwork between a woman and a man could be. And that's the Demi Moore and Tom Cruise characters. So this book says, there's an old saying that a woman never goes to heaven alone, but always takes at least one man with her, be it husband or son, father, brother, or friend. It is of woman's very nature to influence man for good or evil. No woman can be neutral in the world. wrote a famous educator. No woman can be neutral in the world. Um, she too is set for the fall and for the resurrection of many. Uh, the author, I don't even see an author on here. It's such a funny, let me look at it. I'm like, what, who wrote this book? It says like it's for the daughters of St. Paul. This is clearly something that came from like, yeah, this clearly has come from some sort of Catholic. Oh no, it says like, yeah, it's like written by the daughters of, it says written by the daughters of St. Paul. Anyway, I say that to say that in this book, A Few Good Men, Tom Cruise, he is like, oh, I don't want to, I'm just going to like take the easy plea, or I'm just going to like agree with them. I don't want to, like, this is going to be too hard, or I don't want to do the right thing. And she is the one that, Demi Moore's character is the one that kind of just calls him forth. And she does it in a really feminine way. She says, look, you're amazing at this. I see the way that they react to you in the courtroom. You're a fantastic lawyer. You're great at this. You're great at that. And she like, are you going to be a coward? Right? Are you going to let these men down? And I think it's really fascinating. I think it's really, really fascinating, that right there. And it encourages him to step up. She's like his teammate. I think the way that masculine storytelling showcases male-female relationships, male-female dynamics, is through teamwork. There's this idea of complementary skills, different skills. She has different skills than the Tom Cruise character, and I just think it's really beautiful. The other thing is that she's really devoted to the justice of making sure that these two men who were just following orders and are now being, made to look like they committed manslaughter because this higher ranking officer is trying to, keep his record clean, or trying to cover up his mistake, whether it was a mistake or not. And she's so committed to that because she can see this honor, and it's so this code. And I find, and then one of the characters, the supporter of the Tom Cruise character, the Jewish, the other lawyer that's working with him, who has a child, he says to her, why do you like them so much, like these Marines? And I felt so connected with her response. It was like, they stand there on that wall and they protect us. Like, they live by this like moral code. They live by this code. And it was just so emotional, and it was so beautiful. And it's something that I got to experience, like the feminine appreciation of these masculine themes and these masculine ways of doing things, right? And yeah, there were parts of the movie where, they treated her, they said things to her that weren't very nice, and they kind of treated her like, oh, why is a woman sitting at this table? But that only happened, that only was really coming from that, like the villain of the story, if you will. And if we think about it, this is the problem with our society, and it has been the problem with our society. That's why people are, Scott Galloway is talking about what's wrong with boys. People are writing books, The Relentless War on Masculinity. It's like the behavior of that one villainous character is then projected onto all men. Whereas there are all these incredible men in this movie with honor, with loyalty, with just this amazing just drive to live with honor that like was not projected onto society, and it should have been. And so it was just like, I teared up towards the end when it did turn out that those two men were found innocent on two of the counts, but they were still discharged, like dishonorably. Like, they had a dishonorable discharge because I guess I was talking to one of my friends who did used to be in the Marines, and he was saying that, like, honestly, it can be really black and white, even if everyone knows they were just following orders, like, everyone knows that, um, they weren't malicious, it wasn't their fault, like, if something goes wrong or something it doesn't go like the way it's supposed to go, you're probably gonna get discharged. Um, and so I thought that was super fascinating. But then I was crying because he like he was really disappointed that one Marine whose like whole life was built around following this Marine code and this honor and living with honor. And Tom Cruise's character said to him, like, you don't have to have a patch on your arm to live with honor. And I thought it was just so amazing. And again, and I think women don't really understand honor at all. I think it's a foundationally masculine quality and just ideal and theme. It's not something that women can understand. And I think to the point of, I was thinking about, this Marine that was weaker than the rest of them. I was thinking to myself, well, if days and days are going by and he's can't keep up with the runs and he can't keep up with the training and he can't keep up, like why why is he still there? Clearly a mistake was made. Clearly there's been a mistake. He should not be there. And I think one of the parts of the movie that I guess is maybe where some of the obsessiveness, some of these amazing masculine qualities can veer into tyranny or can veer into coldness, um, is when it's clear that something's awry, but people are so committed to this code, this code, this code. Like he chosen, like who cares? Maybe he'll like we'll make a man out of him. Maybe it'll take him 6 months of falling behind the running, but maybe he'll figure it out. I think like a woman would be like, well, it's not like it's not working. Like we need to change something. Like it's not working. Like it's time to break the code for like, if you will, so that we can resolve this situation. So I just thought that was super interesting. I was like, this guy's like falling behind for months on end. Like, why are they still trying to, make it work? It's clearly not working. I thought that was interesting, and I would be so curious to hear what you guys have to say about that. I don't know if everyone here has seen this movie, what y'all think about this film. Um, but again, one of those themes like teamwork, men and women, honor, um, the way that like the other thing, oh man, those two lawyers, the one who is the prosecutor and then Tom Cruise is who was the defense. Man, they were going at each other, right? They were trying to win. They were competing as ruthlessly as they could to win. And then after it was over, they were just like, "Hey man, like, but they just said something kind and loving and they're going to have a beer later." And again, that's a classically masculine way of being, which I think is so interesting. I think yeah, that's evolutionarily more effective in getting the result and achieving the goal and making things happen and protecting people in everything. So it just makes a lot of sense. Like women cannot foundationally do that. Um, they can't do that. It's such a different way of behaving, and so that's why in circumstances where it's honor and justice are the most important themes, like we can't have feminine ways of being running the show because it just doesn't work. So I think it's interesting. There's an odd balance of right, wrong, and regard to honor. It can be a razor's edge. When hunting, there's an odd place of respecting the life and journey of the animal and its life, on contrast to, yeah, having dominion over it and taking its life for the purpose of food. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think and that's when we get into uh, the balance, right? And I think that's where the balance of the feminine has to come in those circumstances, right? Like, I don't think feminine energy has any place in, like in that marine environment that was filmed in the movie, right? In Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, where they're just like, it just doesn't make sense. But I guess in other places and other spaces. So I think, again, having those women working in some of those administrative roles in Washington, D.C., making being able to be influential in the ways that we're supporting moral clarity and encouraging moral clarity. I thought that was so fantastic. Like, more of that, more of like men and women working together on that front, right? And it's like, I mean, I don't know what it's like in the army, in the military in Israel, because it's the one place I know where both men and women are drafted equally. I do know that there are obviously not a lot of female fighter pilots or snipers or anything, but I do know that plenty of women work within like the administrative spaces within the military and are probably highly influential. And I think it's really great. Not to say that like one or two extremely fit, you know, outliers of women can make it into those spaces. Obviously they can, but the majority can't. And I think it's really interesting. Like, what does that look like? That movie to me really, I thought was beautiful. And the other thing that I was thinking about, okay, Tom Cruise's character is, fresh out of law school, 9 months in the job. He's kind of a rookie. He's kind of a newbie, but he's doing really well. He's got a lot of, um, you know, energy and attitude, and just like he's just doing it. And I found it to be so endearing and inspiring how she technically outranked him because she worked there longer and maybe she's a little older even. That's the implication in the film. But she was attracted to him. She was really appreciating his uh who he is, even though he's at the beginning of his career. I think that's something that we've lost in such a big way in culture. There's this, I talk about this a lot, this entitlement in women. And, it's the apps and all the different ways that women get validation without a lot of backup, without like it not being really warranted. And so I think there's also a lot of narratives about like high value men and all this stuff. And it it's so limiting because, oftentimes university is where people would meet, and people would just be at the beginning. Like, we haven't done anything yet. Nobody's made any money yet. We're just at the beginning, and let's be teammates and let's try to figure this out together. And I think that's a really healthy, beautiful thing. Um, a woman like seeing the potential of a man, not in the way of like, oh, I see, like, I want to date you for your potential. No, but just seeing like who he could become and like really believing in him, as opposed to contrast that very male masculine movie with another movie that came out last week, which was Wuthering Heights, the adaptation of, I believe, Emily Bronte's tragic love story from the 1840s or 1860s or something. I remember reading it in high school. And it was just really tragic. Like, this young girl, Kathy, is, they say, in love with Heathcliff, the servant boy who her father took in, but I would much more closely categorize it as obsession. They were obsessed with each other. And he was kind of this nobody, this kind of beastly character that was just this just all rage and aggression and violence. And then meanwhile, there's the other man, the Linton character, who is like the elder man who's established and he has all the wealth and the riches in the world, and but he's this vanilla guy that she's not, sexually interested in. And so in female literature and film, they present this like you can either be with the erotic, sexy, like lowly, like beastly guy, or you can marry the really rich guy who's already got everything and done everything. It's like, but you don't really like him. You don't want to be with him. You're not interested in him. And I think it's like a classic um it's a classic miss in female literature, female films. Like this movie was made, it was adapted for a female audience, obviously. And it's just so unfortunate because then you think about A Few Good Men and it's like, oh, look, they're showcasing like a real normal, like middle ground situation where you meet someone that's on his come up and then you're interested in something similar and then you develop a connection and a friendship and then romance, obviously if you're attracted to each other, then romance is a part of that. And it's funny how like the masculine world will showcase it that way. I think it's really interesting. I mean, I think there are plenty of films that have a dichotomy for women's archetypes too, and specifically the Madonna whore complex is what I'm thinking about, that shows up in a lot of our culture and our films. But again, I think that that's not classically like masculine or like male coded. I think it's actually pretty anti-masculine and anti-feminine, those types of things. So all these women, going back to Wuthering Heights, they're crying at this, crazy love story, which is not a love story. It's like an obsessive tale of chaos, truly. Um, I just anyway, it's it's super crazy. But yeah, like this is the kind of stuff that women are watching, and it's unfortunate because there's a completely different path. And it's not as like intense and sexy or like boring and vanilla. It's something else. And why don't we make more movies like that? Right? I think I just yeah, like my female lens on this thing, I was like, ooh, I loved A Few Good Men. I want to take the Demi Moore Tom Cruise relationship and like make it into another separate film, So it's just funny, like make it into a love story. Obviously, that wasn't the point of the film, but there you go, classic male female differences, right? The point of the film was capturing like honor and moral clarity and brotherhood, and I thought it was super fascinating. Um, yeah, just going back to it, I thought the gun show and like the way that they do all the choreography with the gun in the beginning, like the Marines, I thought that was so beautiful. I think we have such a terrible interpretation of like men and coordination and the way that men can beautifully choreograph something so beautiful, right? I think it's wonderful, and I think the reason that it's so beautiful is because there's purpose in it. There's meaning in it for these men, right? When I was seeing the gun move in this wave as the men were doing it, I don't know what it's called again. Forgive me for not knowing that military term, but it reminded me of my high school days when I was on the uh, it's called drill team in Texas, but it's not the drill team if you're not from Texas. The drill team, it's the dance team. So it's the high kick line, the girls that wear the boots and they do like the high kicks and the splits, and they basically go out in the middle of the football field during halftime and do their dance performance. And it was just so choreographed so beautifully. But what's interesting is like the girls, I was thinking to myself, reflecting on this time in my life, and I was like, oh, I was just like following the rules and I just really love to dance. And girls are really good at following rules and being pleasing and like listening to orders. But I think what's fascinating to me is there doesn't need to be a lot of meaning behind it for women. It's just enough to be like, this is what all the women are doing, so we're going to do them. What's interesting is that for men, I don't think men naturally have this inclination to just follow the rules because someone told them to. There has to be this like deep like code. There has to be this deeper like purpose and meaning and like reason why we're here and we're doing this. And obviously in the military that exists. And so it was so obvious that to me that like of course men can fall in line and choreograph this beautiful thing, which I think is so fascinating. Yeah. Masculine and feminine themes. I think is just so different. I the conversations in the movie that they were having, like with their subordinates and their superiors, and I thought it's just such blunt language that women would never be able to engage with. I remember, I guess, in one of the scenes where the colonel was saying to the man right below him, basically like, you might be upset that I moved up hot, like quicker than you, but I'm your superior, and you will not question my authority. And it was just so direct and needed, and such something that we need. Again, I just watched this movie and I was like, "Oh gosh, I love the energy. I love everything about this." I it's just yeah, it feels so good, and it feels so good when men are connected over something meaningful and you know, creating, building, doing something. Again, I'm not going to pretend that I have any sort of knowledge around the political and, global goings on of the different militaries in the world. And like, I'm not saying that at all. I don't, I don't know how people feel about the United States military right now and what's going on. Um, but I do know that, yeah, there's a lot of, clarity to be gleaned from those environments. That's just where masculine values and themes thrive. And they thrive in business, they thrive in places where risk and aggression is important. Um, Again, I guess one of my big questions, right, is like the Jack Nicholson character, that colonel, like he just saw this kid falling behind. And so he ordered the code red. Um, And that's just what you do. For him, it's like, this is my life. This is my everything. Like, that's just what you do. There's no out. You chose in, there's no out here. So it's not so black and white that he's like a terrible man. I don't think so. It's a really great question of his character and like what's for all the men listening, like what would you have done? And it's just a really great question, because it's hard to tell, because if you're in that environment, then that's the environment you're in. Whereas looking at it from the outside, it obviously seems super horrific to accidentally kill someone and then try to cover it up. So yeah, I just love that movie. Man, I hope you guys watch it. It's just a great movie to rewatch and kind of like remember. Um, and just the aggressiveness and the having to fail the cadet would show a failure to lead develop. Having them drop out shows a high standard. Yeah, having to fail the cadet would show a failure to lead and develop. I see. Yeah, and that's what I got from it. That's why it's not so black and white. He was like, we're gonna keep him here. Um, yeah, this movie gave me a lot of emotional difficulty, because as a woman, it's like, oh, this is all so not black and white. Like all these people are like potentially going to prison for all of these like gray area things that have happened in this situation. Like what to do, And yeah, I get it. Dropping out would be a no go, and he couldn't have it under his command. And this is why this is why you guys are so amazing. You have such a special devotion to honor and keeping the code and self mastery. I think self mastery is a huge part of it. And Yeah, I think it's it's incredible. Now, I think obviously we take all of these great lessons and we imagine, okay, well, I mean, some of those men, like, they're just, they don't actually know who they are. And I guess that's, they're in the beginning of their life, right? They have to go through this and they have to kind of, the unit is more important than the man. And that's why that's why it's built the way it's built. So it makes a lot of sense. Like to me, just seeing this, you know, 19-year-old, hey, how you guys doing? Seeing this 19-year-old who's just kind of like doesn't know who he is without this experience of the Marines, which I imagine is going to teach him a lot. And then after leaving the Marines, I imagine hopefully he'll find his way and find his own unique individual sense of self. And I think this leads me to the question of like, ultimately, what's happening with my clients, and ultimately like the journey of self discovery and healing, and really just becoming at peace with who you are and why you're here, is being able to answer the question like, do you love yourself? Really and truly, do you love yourself? And for most people, oftentimes the answer is honestly no. They can say yes, they can try to fake it, but the answer is deep down, honestly, no. And so there are things that, okay, well, maybe if I get this degree, or maybe if I get this, or um, maybe if I do that, you know, like it's all stuff that like covers things up, right? And yeah, sometimes we have to peel back those layers and try to find that out. But I do think that when men find self mastery and discipline, the ability to answer that question with a yes becomes much stronger. Um, and yeah, maybe there's some work to do with like stuff around dad and mom and feelings of rejection and abandonment as a child. But um, that's the work that I do. That's what I love to do. And I think, oh, look, we have a Russian comment. Hi. I'm gonna try to read this on live on air. You guys are gonna get to see like the authentic me. So I came to this country when I was just barely 3 years old. And I think I still know how to read, but at like a first grade level, okay, which is pretty impressive for having come here at 3 years old. So I'm gonna try to read this. Um, Как какое, говоришь, какое говоришь не ты разбира I'm reading at a first grade level. Разбираем на языка. Рассказ рассказываешь не нечего, но, а, глядам не праздно. Глядом не I'm not gonna get this, I'm sorry. I'm so bad at reading Russian, you guys. Um, тряв трябва да знам на овски I can't. It's too hard, guys. Having a hard time. If you wanna rewrite that in, like, Russian, but, like, English letters, I can probably read that a little bit better. Um, it's a reality of being an American with a Russian background and having come here at a very young age. I love to speak in Russian, and I can speak very well, but, yeah, my reading is just not good. Sorry. The only way to love is with God and family. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a foundational kind of disconnection that a lot of us feel, like an imbalance in the world. Another book that I will share with you guys, because I think I'm going to do an actual book review in some of these. I think I want to start doing that. But I'm halfway through this book, Matrimony by Stephen Jenkinson, Ritual Culture and the Heart's Work. Really beautiful book. Um, and I, yeah, there's just really just, there's something like we're missing about the like I don't know, just the old ways of doing things, slowness of life and time and nature. And, oftentimes if we had some difficulties with attachment, like our parent or parents were unavailable for us at different times, uh, we had nature, we had our allo parents, we had the elders, we had lots of people around us. And so I thought it was just such a fascinating, actually, one of my closest friends just had a child 5 weeks ago, and I spent all day Tuesday with her and her baby, just the whole day. And I just remember um, just the most meaningful moment was this baby was crying and fussing. And then I was holding this baby out front, and I was looking in his eyes, and I just looked in his eyes, and I was just breathing super calmly. And I could tell that his nervous system was relying on my nervous system to regulate. He like my eye gaze with him, and the breathing and the soothing, like that was food. That was just as important as food and making sure he's comfortable and, wiping him and changing his diapers. Like that is just as important. And the reality is, in the busyness of life the last 75 years or whatever, a lot of us didn't get that kind of attention, that kind of when the baby is seeking that nervous system regulation, that eye gaze, that connection. Every time, like they didn't get it. And apparently babies seek this around 15 to 18 times an hour. That's what they need. And so, you know, um, they need this. Otherwise, they're going to be insecure. There's going to be an insecurity. And again, this might sound a little woo-woo to some of you, but some of you will really get it. That's what's really going on with a lot of people in the modern culture, and like people that I see, clients. It's what I felt when I was in my teens and growing up. It's like everything's fine, but there's this like underlying feeling that I'm not living my life. Like I'm watching myself living, and I'm trying to do all of these different things to check boxes and to make it feel like everything's going well. People are like, "Why are you down? Why are you upset? Why is there melancholy?" And you're doing great in school and you're making great grades, and it's the foundational like belonging that was pre-verbal that was missing, like that foundational security and safety that comes from secure attachment with your caregivers and with others, right? And so many people don't live nearby their elders, and they are afraid to ask for help. And there's like the village mindset has been eroded in a big way. And so I think there's foundational. It's pretty foundational. And yeah, I think both mom and dad are important for that in different ways. And it's interesting. There was a statistic I read that was like, it was just like, where did I have that? Hold on one second. Oh yeah. So South Korea has spent more than 200 billion since 2006 on programs to reward parenthood with cash awards for the birth of a baby. Parental leave that lasts a year, and subsidized childcare. Nothing has worked. Source: The Origin of Politics by Nicholas Wade. And my thoughts on that are like, yeah, because the root problem is one layer beneath that. The root problem is men and women being encouraged that they don't need each other. And yeah, like blank slate social constructivist thinking of like men and women are the same. And the erosion of our biological differences, and within schools of thought, not in reality. Our biological differences are very intact. We just can't see them as well because so many people work in these types of jobs where there's not a lot of sex differences. So like apparent sex differences. I gave this example of this couple friend that I used to have in New York who were both working at ad agencies. They were both working at an ad agency, and they like were, they're computer warrior type of jobs, like making ads and, Mad Men time style stuff. But they ended up buying a house like in a rural part of Vermont or something, and they moved up there, and they needed to fix the house, and then they got pregnant. What do you think happened? Suddenly the husband is like helping doing the roof. Suddenly the husband is figuring out how to make sure the porch doesn't creak. Suddenly the husband is doing all of these very masculine things, and she is, pregnant and trying to keep herself healthy and having a baby and doing all of these feminine things and working on things, internally in the house. It's just like natural. And these two people were quite kind of liberal people, and that's just what ended up happening. And it's very natural. So no matter how much money South Korea throws at people to start having babies, they're not going to start having babies until they start needing each other and wanting to get together and be teammates. Bringing this full circle to A Few Good Men, teammates, the way they showcase that connection between the Demi Moore character and the Tom Cruise character. They were teammates first and foremost. Like you don't show disdain to your teammate. You don't point out all their weaknesses without pointing out all of their strengths. You don't do that to your teammate. You light them up. You lift them up. You make them feel like they can do anything. And it's just really unfortunate that that's the problem in South Korea, and it's obviously the problem in the rest of the Western world. But yeah, when you've like the 4B movement happened in Korea, where women were like just like choosing off men, and again, all that stuff is just social status between women. It's so silly. It's so silly, and I think that's why like publications like Evie magazine is trying to go against that now. There's like this conservative women's magazine that's trying to be really fashionable and current, but also traditional, but a little sexier than you would think. So it's really interesting. I think they're doing a great job, Evie magazine in general. And so, yeah, I think celebrating masculine themes, celebrating feminine themes. That's kind of been the theme of today. Anybody have any questions? Our seasons are now run by the calendar, whereas they were more seasonal. We would be coming out of Advent and entering Lent season, the low of Advent coming down into a renewal season. Yeah, definitely. That's the kind of stuff that Stephen Jenkinson talks about a lot. Yeah, there's this one passage I'll read to you guys because I just thought it was so beautiful. I wrote about this a little bit in my newsletter this week. Subscribe to my newsletter if you haven't yet. I always really enjoy writing these every week. Where is this? Let's see here. Anyway, I can't find it. But one of the things is that I was writing about that I think is interesting is the difference between ritual and performance, and how a lot of our lives in the Western world right now, a lot of the things that we participate in are performances and not rituals. Because a ritual is not, it's something that creates the space for newness to happen. It creates the space for witnessing and truth and kind of like the here and now to happen. And so I'll answer that question in a second. And he's writing about weddings, right? This book is about matrimony and getting married and staying married. And he's writing about how, at a wedding, everybody kind of just files in, all the guests file in row after row, and they all face the front, and they're kind of looking at the front, and then bride and groom kind of come in at the end, the first the groom, then the bride at the end. It's the final hurrah. And, they say those tried and true words and then they kiss and then it's over. What, 20 minutes maybe? And nothing, it's almost like the scent of a meal instead of the meal, right? And it's like, oh, there's something missing. It's like almost like we're disconnected. And he's talking about how in a ritual, like you don't have an audience, you have witnesses, participants, true witnesses. And a ritual is about making space for the gods, making space for the loved ones and people and even strangers to speak things that they know to be true, to trust their intuition, to be connected to the higher power in that way. Um, you know, a ritual can take all night. You have no idea what's going to happen in a ritual. And that's why I really appreciate being inside of like coaching containers and spaces where you have like a 12-week period or like a either 3 months or 6 months where, a bunch of people or not a bunch of people intentionally crafted space where people kind of choose into the space and you create ritual after ritual, week after week, as you're kind of going through your life and achieving your goals and changing and healing. And the reason it's a ritual is because it's not prescriptive. It's not like you're just going to a lecture to listen to someone tell you information about something or healing or psychology or self-development. It's you're in the space and you're being really witnessed. And that's what changes people. That's how people change. I just finished this really beautiful container it was 7 women called Embodied Feminine Leadership, and it was beautiful. And I'm actually running one right now for men in my own group. So it's called True North, and I've talked about it. We're in like week 5, and so it's going amazingly well. I'm just like, it's just beautiful to be in spaces like that. So yeah, if you're interested in being in a space like that, reach out to me. I can give you more information, tell you more about it. I'm going to probably do another one in a couple months whenever this one is done. But what do you think about age gap relationships? How about between 7 to 10 years? I think they're totally fine. I think they're totally fine. Do you mean like women are younger or men are younger? I think both are totally fine. I think it just depends on people's goals in life, what they want out of life. Where women are younger, yeah, I think that's totally fine. People have been doing it since the beginning of time. I think it's totally fine. I think sometimes it can get a little bit like authoritative sometimes when it's 10 years. So I think you just have to be careful that if you want to date a woman 10 years younger than you, then you want to treat her like your teammate and not like someone that is, needs to listen to you, right? Because she's younger and you're older and wiser. I think you need to really recognize the complementary skills that you both have and just really still create that teamwork dynamic. And then I think it can be totally fine. I think it's great. So, yeah. All right. It's 5:02, you guys. We've been going for almost an hour. This has been fun. I hope you've enjoyed talking about a few good men and women and men and the state of things. Sorry, I couldn't read that Russian comment. I'm going to read it a little bit later and remember and see what it said. I just needed a little more time to read that because I read Russian on a first grade level. Anyway, lots of love to you guys. Have a really great weekend, and until the next one.